Hey y'all, welcome to Geeking Out, the podcast about all geeky aspects of software delivery, DevOps, observability, reliability, and everything in between. I'm your host, Adriana Villela, coming to you from Toronto, Canada. And geeking out with me today is Jennifer Moore. Welcome, Jennifer.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, super excited to have you on. So where are you calling from today?
I am in the Dallas, Texas area.
Oh, awesome! I think you're our first person from the South.
Yeah, there are programmers outside of San Francisco.
Nice. So to get warmed up, I want to get started with some lightning round questions that I like to ask all of my guests. So it's about 6 questions. It'll be fast and painless. Okay, first question: are you a lefty or a righty?
I am right-handed.
All right. iPhone or Android?
Android.
Mac, Linux, or Windows?
I guess Windows.
All right.
All of the above.
I think you're our first Windows person. Cool. Favorite programming language?
C#.
Cool. Dev or Ops?
Was that Dev or Ops? Is DevOps the right answer? Because that's what I'm going to choose.
I mean, no wrong answers, so DevOps works. Yeah, when I asked this one to Hazel Weekly, and she said yes. So that counts too. Love it. Final question is, do you prefer to consume content through video or text?
Text usually.
All right, cool. Well, that was it. Short and painless. All right, so let's get into the meaty bits. And I always like to ask my guests how they got started in tech. So what was your foray into tech?
So tech is always what I don't know, like as a child, I liked computers, and I took some I don't know, took some programming classes at summer camp school thing. That was a weird dynamic, but I did that a little bit, and then my high school offered some programming classes, and I took those, and then I went to school to university for software engineering. After I dropped out of university, I got a job in QA. Moved very promptly into QA automation.
Oh, that's awesome. So, out of curiosity, what was your first programming language?
My very first programming language, I don't know if we're going back as far as I can, then TI Basic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think the first one I spent any real time with was C++.
Nice. Yeah, my OG language was GW Basic, but I don't recall doing anything super damaging with it. So my real one was Q Basic.
Nice.
Good times. Cool. And okay, so more on the QA thing. So how what brought you on the path of QA initially in your career?
Honestly, it was the job that I could get. It was 2009, so not the best time to be job hunting. I had been looking for things for a while, and I got an offer for a QA role, so I took it.
Nice. I got my my professional start in QA as well. It was not the QA automation stuff. It was the clickety click, fill out Excel sheets and sit and wait for the developers to fix bugs. So yeah, I can definitely relate. And then after a while, I kind of begged my manager, please let me write code. So was QA automation kind of the natural thing for you? Because I mean, obviously you're software minded, so that felt like is that what led you to it? from there,
Yeah,
from that campus?
yeah. I mean, like I have some experience in software. Had done some part-time programming, and like obviously I was going to school for software engineering.
Yeah.
Like my hiring manager at the time, like had a manual QA, process, whatever, but like was looking to set up an automation uh, I guess, function for it. And so I think she, saw my showing up as an opportunity um, and went from there.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's I feel like, QA automation is so like developer minded because we're like so tired of like I think developers are lazy, and that's I see that as a perfectly awesome thing, right? We do not want to repeat things over and over and over again if there's a way that we can shortcut it through code. So I think it's so awesome that you took advantage of that opportunity and put the developer laziness to good use, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. And now, what kind of work are you doing now?
So now I work at InfluxData. I'm a staff software engineer on what we call the deployments team, which is it's a little bit of an unusual charter, but basically DevOps, like platform engineering work, and like helping like I guess like the thing that we most definitely are responsible for is like our CI/CD pipelines, maintaining the good health of like Argo and the automation that generates our Kubernetes manifest that we're going to deploy and things like that, and as well as like a lot of things around development tooling and some infrastructure work um, and a lot of whatever else comes up.
So that sounds like a pretty good breadth of responsibilities, because usually you see like it feels like the description of your work is like a combination of what you would see in like a DevOps team these days, plus an SRE team, plus a platform team, all rolled into one.
Yeah, and so like we do have an SRE team, and they like they take more of the infrastructure than we do, but like we work very closely together because we're using a lot of the same tools and doing like and using those tools on a lot of the same things, and so like that's a blurry line.
Yeah, yeah. Cool, cool. And so, like, as part of your job, do you get to be on call?
I haven't been much this like in this role. I expect that that's going to like that I will eventually have some on call responsibilities. But it's like the team's kind of in a rebuilding phase, and so like there's just been an understanding that like we don't have enough people to support an on call rotation, and so we'll get to things like during our working hours.
Oh, gotcha. Now, how about in previous roles? Have you had a chance? Have you been on call in previous roles, and what was that like?
Yeah. So in my previous role, this was at a company called Screencastify. They make a screen recording product, and like I was leading the DevOps team there, and I spent a lot of time on call there. We had like I think in particular, we were building a like kind of a V2 of the platform, which included migrating data from Firestore into a grown-up database with schemas, um, and that went. That was going about like these data migrations do, and then we had some staffing disruptions where um, several people who were very like senior and critical of that project resigned, somewhat in protest of some management behavior, and
Yeah.
the whole thing kind of collapsed, and I was on call to support that.
Oh,
So
yikes!
that was a rough month.
Oh my goodness! But it was just for a month.
I understand that there is like that the team is still dealing with um, you know like the after effects of that, but
Oh,
I'm not a part
yikes!
of it anymore.
Oh my goodness! That's got to be so super stressful. How do you like,
Uh,
in that situation, how do you deal with like, because I mean, it takes its toll on your mental health eventually, if not right away, given like, not just being on call, but stresses of like changes in your team. So like, how did you cope during that time?
um, yeah, I am not. I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like I handled it pretty well. Like I was kind of, um, I don't know. Like I had a sort of active, ongoing incident that I had to continuously respond to for a long time there, and so like I kind of just had to do that. And I think having um, like being able to do things that like I could do in a self-directed way, and like things that were obviously important and necessary, and I could just do them without having to like you know go through like a planning process that you would do for like future work, was actually kind of helpful for me in that regard. I could just like put out fires, and I didn't need to worry about the politics that had led up to that situation.
Right. So you were kind of shielded, or at least you were able to work kind of in a little bubble to shield yourself from some of the crap, so that you could focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, and there was stuff that I had been wanting to do, and like now there was this emergency, and I took advantage of it, and I put in a lot more tracing and monitoring, and made some application changes to make the whole thing more observable and like in general, and that I don't like that was nice. Getting to just like do observability and reliability work as its own like dedicated priority was you know a really nice side effect of that otherwise unpleasant situation.
Oh, that's so cool. So how so yeah, it's very interesting because like I think a lot of times organizations, like when they're embroiled in like the royal dumpster fire of like production production shitstorms, it's almost it's like such a reactive mode. But to be able to like, I think it's so cool to be able to take advantage of like a shitty situation, and like basically say, no, I got to do this so that we can improve the overall reliability of the system, is really cool. Because I think many organizations would sort of almost not be in support of that, in spite of the fact that that's probably exactly what they would need to do.
Yeah, like um, it's like unpleasant in the moment, but it is very powerful to be able to say that if you want the system to work at all, then we have to make it work reliably, because like right now it just doesn't, and it isn't, and that's the problem.
And so, how did folks like management and whatnot react once they like? Did they start to see the benefits, I hope, of all the wonderful things that you did around like improving reliability and observability?
I think so. So like my sort of direct management chain had been pretty on board with the notion of like improving our observability and making reliability like a thing, like a priority.
Yeah.
And so like I didn't have to like fight very hard with the like with my manager or my director. But then like once you left the engineering organization, that was when that sort of broke down, and the rest of the organization was very or the rest of executive team was very focused on like features and deadlines, and just like delivering things that they could sell to customers.
Yeah.
And they didn't view a reliable product as being on that list for some reason, which is always an
Interesting.
extremely weird view to take to me, because like if the product doesn't work, then like even if you can sell it to someone, they're not going to keep paying for it. And so why, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's interesting though that you, I mean, it's kind of shitty that you ended up being in a situation where afterwards, like management didn't really see the value in what you were doing. But it's like from a hindsight perspective, it's interesting to see like at the same organization with like leadership changes, what happens when you have like leadership that's fully supporting, like this idea of like, hey, let's make sure our systems are reliable, and versus, so supporting an observability and reliability culture versus an organization within the same organization, it's change in leadership saying, no, that's not our priority. It's an interesting experiment. And I'm sure, like aside from the obvious things that we would think like, yeah, that's obviously not a great idea, but getting to experience firsthand what that was like, I'm sure must have been a very interesting and unique vantage point.
Yeah, I think it was definitely interesting. I very definitely learned a lot from it. I'm still kind of, I don't know, like synthesizing what that is. So it would be hard to like teach those lessons to someone else. But I certainly, you know, have came away with a lot of experience.
Silver lining then.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity, like when you're talking about like, bringing observability into the picture, what did you do in terms of observability?
Yeah, so like in that specific case, there were a couple of things. There was it's like the system had, like a main sort of application web server that would, handle the bulk of like talking to clients and like ingesting video and things like that. And then a like task system that would do some processing of video and like analysis and things like that. And like I could not see at all what was happening in that task system. And I really needed to understand what like was going on with the whole system. And so I basically just like stopped doing other things for a few days and wrote up a hotel auto instrumentation for the like the library that powered it, which is BullMQ. Um, so now there is one of those, and I wrote it, and I did so in anger. Um, um,
Angry coding, awesome.
yeah, and so like that actually, and like that was very helpful. Probably in ways that my management did not appreciate because it eliminated a lot of areas where the problems were not occurring. And like the problem was basically database related. Um, and so the question was like, what is causing all of the stress on the database? And the other thing I did was like split up all of the database access into multiple different accounts, so that I could actually tell the difference between whether traffic was coming from like the web service or the task workers or like some migration jobs or whatever else was happening. And that between those two things, I was able to develop a basic understanding of what the problem was.
Cool, cool. And then what did you use for like visualizing your observability data? Did you guys use like something that was like a SaaS product, or just something that was like hosted internally?
Yeah, they had been using Datadog, so like I
Okay.
kept using it. That was a decision that was made before I joined the company, and so um, like that just was the one that we stuck with.
Fair enough. But it did the job well enough, I guess, with the data that you were receiving.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely get the um, answer the questions that we were trying to answer once we started like sending them the data that they would need um, to do that with.
That's awesome. Do you know if anyone is still like taking advantage of the observability setup that you put in, or like?
I understand that they are. One of the um, like when I left, one of the things that I had been wanting to do was, or like was actually starting to do, was move to like the hotel collector rather than like Datadog's proprietary ones, so that we could experiment with different backends and things. And it seems like that work continued because last I heard they had moved to Honeycomb, went off of Datadog.
Oh, interesting. That's very cool. Like, it's awesome that the stuff that you put in place like continued.
Yeah.
I'm sure that I I'm sure that you feel really great about that to have like like a little legacy.
Yeah, I wish it was a happier legacy, but I am glad that it's helping the people who are still there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, switching gears a bit, I know that when we were chatting earlier, you were talking about you had some thoughts around how engineers learn. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit more on that.
Yeah, sure. So uh, this kind of all like this thinking that I've been doing about it kind of comes out of a lot of the sort of public conversation that's happening around like AI and LLMs and such, and their use as developer tools. And I think one of the areas that doesn't get talked about enough in this regard is that the only things that those kinds of like AI development tools are really good at doing are the same tasks that humans need to do in order to learn about the like complex systems and like in programming and the systems that they work on. And so like it's a little bit of like technology eating its own seed corn here when we push these tools because it might be convenient for like senior people who already have all of those knowledge and skills, but the like the next generation of engineers who we should be looking out for are just like losing all of these opportunities to do like really good basic learning work to computers that like can't even really learn from it.
Interesting. So you're saying that these AI tools are almost like hindering how we learn as a result?
Um, yeah, kind of. I mean, I think that there is a lot of danger that those AI tools can take all of the good, like all of the good learning tasks and uh, you know, I guess like jobs and roles that people would learn from.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even to a certain extent, using like I feel like there's a fine line, right? Like of like leaning too hard into AI and then but using it as an aid, right? Like for example, I've had in a couple of cases where like I've written something down. I need to summarize. I summarized something, but it needed to be like 300 words, and I'm like at 350. I'm like, shit. That's really sometimes it can be really tricky, right? So popping it into like ChatGPT and saying, hey, can you just make this fit into 300 words? Like you've put the time and effort into writing it, but like, and then ChatGPT just takes it that extra little bit to just get you across to the finish line. I feel like that's all right versus like, oh, ChatGPT, write me like an entire like story, and then you don't really have to think, research, whatever. It's kind of like this lost opportunity for learning because you're relying on it to do basically the whole thing for you, and maybe you'll verify it, maybe not. I guess depending on what kind of person is using the tool.
Yeah, I think that is one of the actual uses of these kinds of LLM tools that makes sense. Is to have the author of a document use it to produce a summary that they can like verify the correctness of, or like to do some style transfer to make it sound like a business email instead of something you wrote at 4 o'clock when you're trying to just leave the office. Um, and
So true.
um, yeah, but then there's like, but that's not really how it gets, or like that's not the limit of how people advocate that they be used. And it instead gets posed as like an ops tool, and people are proposing that you should do AI ops, and you'll have machines that will like just scale your systems for you or whatever, or like tell you that you're running out of database connections, and like jump right to an answer, which may or may not be the correct one, and without letting any people go through the path of discovering like what happened there. And if you're running out of connections because like you have an n+1 query that is closing and opening new connections all the time, like that's a very different problem than just like like a runaway serverless system that is overloading your like it's causing some sort of thundering herd problem for your database. And like the AI probably can't tell you the difference. It probably doesn't know that there is a difference. And like and the way that but it sort of takes away the opportunity for people to do that investigation and learn what those things mean and like what to do about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think I think to a certain extent, those of us who have not, quote unquote, grown up around ChatGPT, I feel like we could be, or similar tools for that matter. I feel like it's almost like because of how we grew up in tech, it provides like a guardrail for us where we're still probably more inclined to like still do the research, trust but verify, not take it for face value. But for folks who are like coming up in this era of these various AI tools, I think it becomes a lot more difficult because this is like sort of, they're they're not as encouraged to, put in that extra thought or put in that bit of creativity before handing it off to the AI tool, because that's not what they've been brought up with. And I feel like that can be very dangerous then to the younger generation as a result.
Yeah, exactly. And so like when you're like a experienced programmer and you're using ChatGPT to remind yourself what the syntax is for array.map, like that's a very different like dynamic than a inexperienced programmer who's using ChatGPT to like create from whole cloth a like function that will turn one array and like do something to an array and give them different results. And now that like they don't know like um, like superficially these look like the same thing, but there's just so much like experience and context that the senior person brings, and I think that we all forget that like not everyone has that, and you had to develop it somehow, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like by having a computer just hand you an answer.
Yeah, exactly. It's those late night sessions with like Stack Overflow open on
Yeah,
like 5 different tabs, trying to figure out what is the right question that I should be asking. And please, like
yeah.
someone who had that same problem, so like maybe I know what's going on.
Yeah, and so yeah, like, and if the for someone who hasn't even like internalized like what a callback is and how it works and how you should think about it, like they're in such a different position, like that they can't even really do anything with the result other than just paste it into their editor and see if it works.
Yeah, it's basically like the blind programming at that point. Yeah, I'm
Um,
curious to see like how things are going to pan out, because like there've been calls for like legislation around like blocking these AI tools to a certain extent or limiting them. So I'm wondering how it's going to pan out. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I hope that something happens. He's like, yes, I also have thoughts on like the way that these tools get built and all of the like the harvesting of data without permission that goes into the training sets, and how opaque they are, and whether like what the results are and how they get used and by who and on who. These are all big questions. So yes, I do think that like having some sort of government regulation oversight is going to be important, because like the way these AI models are built involves a lot of like harvesting of people's work uncompensated from the internet. It's a very extractive thing, and then they get turned into these like computer systems that people use to make decisions, and you can't really like inspect those decisions, or and people don't really understand what they're doing and how they work, and then like who uses them and to do what, and who benefits and who suffers for that, are sort of like um, I don't want to say open questions, because the answer generally is going to be the same as it usually is. People with privilege will benefit from them, and people without will suffer. But yeah, and so that's not great for us. But that is where things are going.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what I find interesting about this whole thing too is that like even some of the folks who are responsible for the creation of these technologies are sort of like, whoa, chill out. We got to like take a step back on this thing before it like blows out of proportion, which I think is quite interesting. Now I don't want to sound alarmist, but every time like I see how advanced like things have continued getting with AI, I can't help but get it like Terminator vibes. I don't think it'll be like quite so drastic, but I'm like, man, Skynet might not be too far away.
Maybe. I think Skynet is the wrong thing to be concerned about, though. Like,
Fair.
well,
Probably.
I think it's important to note that like the creators of all of these systems, like what they're advocating for is that other people should step back. Like they don't want governments to tell them to stop doing what they're doing. They just want governments to prevent other people from doing the same things.
Mm.
And that's like that's a different thing.
Yeah.
And then like you look at like other AI systems that we have in the world, like self-driving cars. Like they get to a point where they can do simple things fairly reliably in controlled settings, and then you unleash them on the real world, and they're constantly going the wrong way down one-way roads, and like stopping for obstacles that don't exist, and completely ignoring ones that do. And so and like I don't think that language models are going to be all that different. Like they don't have a real understanding of what's happening around them. They're just doing pattern matching, and like there's going to be patterns that they haven't encountered before, and like what does it do in that case? Who knows?
Yeah, and it's interesting, like that's for self-driving cars, which can be scary enough, like, if things go south, but then they're like talking about like there's self-driving like planes out there as well, which yeah, I feel like that's a whole other level of of self-driving as well, which could be interesting.
Yeah, and it's easy to see how like the danger in like self-driving vehicles, and why you would want to be careful about that. But then you turn it into like language models, and it's just like the algorithm that does things, but what you get is like self-approving mortgages, and that's not going to
Yes.
be like different. Yeah, like that's still going to hurt people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, damn. Yeah, the possibilities are endless, and it's not in a good way either. Cool. Well, just I know we don't have like too much time left, but I did also want to touch upon. You said you were when we were chatting earlier. You've got like a little project that you have that you've been working on around the Fediverse. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have recently started a Fediverse project. So like I call it Letterbook Social. It's a Mastodon like microblogging service. Um, the um, and like the thing that makes it different, other than being like just not Mastodon, is that I'm trying to optimize for the needs of the operators, because it's in like talking to people who run Mastodon servers. Now that I've met some of them in the last, I don't know, what is it, 8 months now,
Mhm.
that like that's actually not a great experience. Like Mastodon doesn't have very good observability, and it is hard to scale, and it's hard to deploy, and the sort of like the admin and the operator tools are, and the moderator tools for that matter, are very primitive. And so, what I want to do is like solve for that. I want to make it, easy to set up and easy to scale and easy to understand what the system is doing, and be able to oversee it as the human being running it, which I think is particularly important, in this case, because these things are very frequently overseen by like one single person.
Yeah, that can be very stressful to say the least. That is very cool. So are you building it on top of like existing Mastodon code, or are you like starting from scratch?
No, yeah, this is from scratch. Since like it seems like getting changes into Mastodon is a sort of an uphill climb, and so I decided that, like, since I don't particularly know or like Ruby anyway, that I'll just do my own thing. And so now, like, I have a C# project. Get back to that lightning question, and I get to work in C#, and I've been doing a lot of that, and it's like, it's going to be a while before it's a usable thing, but it's getting to a point where like, in the near future, I'll have something that like stands up and operates, and I can start exchanging messages with other services.
That is so cool. Really look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I will be talking about it a lot on the Fediverse once I have something a little bit more concrete to talk about.
Very cool. Do you have anything like on it right now, like any documentation, or are you still like so initial stages that it's like, nope, it's just the code?
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm doing this like it's open source. I would be happy to have people help and contribute. It's on GitHub. Like, Letterbook is, I think, a pretty easy word to search for. And if you want a URL, there's a letterbook.hq.com.
Yeah, send me the URL. I'll include it in the show notes. Very cool.
I haven't gotten, like, I haven't had opportunity to focus on the kinds of like open source project maturity that would make it easy for people to jump in and start contributing. But if somebody's feeling adventuresome, I would love to have more help, and I would be more than happy to talk through how things are structured and what contributions people can make.
Very awesome. So all you C# lovers out there, cool opportunity. Very cool. Well, we are coming up at time. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining today. This was lots of fun. Totally loved talking about AI stuff, your observability endeavors, and your new little Fediverse project. Thank you so much for geeking out with me today. And y'all don't forget to subscribe. Be sure to check out the show notes for additional resources and to connect with us and our guests on social media. Until next time.
Peace out, geek out.
Geeking Out is hosted and produced by me, Adriana Villela. I also compose and perform the theme music on my trusty clarinet. Geeking Out is also produced by my daughter, Hannah Maxwell, who incidentally designed all of the cool graphics. Be sure to follow us on all the socials by going to bento.me/geekingout.